This is the What I Need podcast, a shared journey exploring topics of society, spirituality, and even ways of being. Here, we speak freely and fully, from the heart and the conscious mind, in hopes to find what we need. Thank you, for your time is valuable and you could have been anywhere else in the universe. All of you are welcomed and appreciated here.
Hello and welcome to the What I Need podcast. This is your host, King Karlton. I am here today with Carolyn Ferrari. She is a practicing Nichiren Buddhist that I got to meet at the Last Mile Cafe. And we had a wonderful conversation about Buddhism, awakening, Christ consciousness, just elevating consciousness, and also spirituality, and how it's been a really wonderful journey to just experience yourself be like lifted up through so many different things that life throws at us, right? Mm-hmm. So on this enlightening episode, we dive into the profound teachings of Nichiren Buddhism, a philosophy centered on courage, compassion, and the power of chanting Nam-myoho-renge-kyo.
Yeah. High five, you did that.
Yes. Discover how this practice fosters inner transformation, resilience, and unshakable connection to life's deepest truths. So, yes, welcome to the show, Carolyn. How are you doing today?
Decidedly nervous right now.
Okay.
But I'm okay.
Not a problem.
Yeah. Nervous.
Don't worry. I don't buy anywhere in your house.
Oh, well, that's fair. That's fair, but whoever's out there is not in my house. So it's like, okay, yes. But I'm happy, though. Overall, I really am happy. You talked about our meeting at the Last Mile, and that was so profound because I believe that I was sent there to meet you. Because
That's
I told you that I was there to meet somebody else. There was another artist that we've been trying to connect now for a month.
Okay.
Easy. And so we had set up the meeting and we were supposed to meet there, and I called, text message, all the things. He never showed up. By the way, I did get a text message like 3 hours afterwards from him.
Okay.
But you were there.
Yeah.
And just your whole aura. And so after we started talking, I'm like, this is the reason why I was supposed to be here today. Because
that's so
I would
funny.
not have been at the Last Mile on that day for any other reason except to meet someone there.
Right,
and
okay.
when he didn't show up, the fact that something in my spirit just said, you don't have to go anywhere, so you can just chill here. And then in walks you. I was like, all right. Okay. I'm here. I'm here for this moment. So
nice.
Yeah. But that happens a lot, though.
Yeah.
That happens when you're, I think when you're tuned in,
mm-hmm.
you kind of just go with it. You know? Yeah.
Yeah. The funny thing is, and I was gonna say something else too about your being there. Oh, I was like, oh yeah, I'll sub in. I'll sub in for the homeboy that didn't
that didn't show up.
pick me.
Yeah.
Because I felt like through all my spiritual journeying and just noticing of practice, Buddhism has always stood out to me, and the Buddha and the awakening, the awakening from mind into actual consciousness, I feel like has always been something I've been interested in. Like even in my grandparents' house, they would always have like pictures or little Buddha statues, But I was raised Baptist.
Now which one though? The little fat round belly one, or the more?
I believe both.
Because they're two different people. I don't know if you knew this.
Yeah. The
little round belly statues, that's Confucius.
That's Confucius.
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes. So the Buddha was much more of the one that has the Navi helmet.
Yes.
That's the Buddha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's that for you. Happy though. Confucius is a very happy character. So
yes.
yeah, I love that they portray him that way. But
yeah,
they're two different people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
anyway, back to you and the statues in your house.
Yeah.
Your family. Yeah.
Yes. They would collect. My grandfather would collect a lot of Asian-centric art and African art. So throughout his house, you'd have black and gold like vases, and then you'd have some Asian Orient like collections as well, and some Buddhas there. So I'd always seen him, and I'm like, that's cool. I'm like, meditation sounds cool. Like, it wasn't until I got older that I was able to kind of experience for myself the benefits of meditation and things of that nature. And then as I was been practicing meditation in the last few years, and I think also going through some transformation personally in my life, one of my recent meditations before I met you, I was kind of like, it indicated that I'm going to be meeting like a spiritual being was going to come and get me.
No
and
way.
I swear,
No
yeah,
way.
that like we're coming to get you. Yeah, like we're coming to to help lift you up and like embrace you, and like just kind of increase and enhance my practice or something, like to come home in a way. And that's really what it felt like. Like I don't think I had told you this.
You had not told me this.
And
it's even more profound now. So
like I have a lot of intuitive hits like that. I think in my meditation moments, satori moments, where you kind of feel like you feel like you went. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then when a lot of times when I come out from the meditation, it's like, yep, this is going to be like that, that's going to be like this, and then you'll be fine. So that was one of the things that came to me that
I'm just
higher dimensional higher dimensional
so
beings will be there, like there to assist you basically or something. So yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. What's even more amazing is that when you are in a moment like that, you don't like, when we connected, I didn't think of it as I'm this spiritual coming to talk to Vernon, you know, or to, it was just like, let's just connect, right? Yeah. But so then on the other side of that, you are getting a message that someone is coming to connect with you with purpose, and then so you never know who those people are going to be in your life. Mm-hmm. So I think that's it's really it's good to be open to people. I think that we as a society miss out on so much because we are closed off. We don't allow our minds to even consider the possibility there might be something for us in someone that we meet if they don't look a certain way, or if they don't in a certain environment, or packaged in a certain way, you know what I mean? So I just think we miss a lot. We miss a lot.
And that would have been unfortunate. I'm so glad that I met you.
Me too.
And again, I felt like I was able to confirm that intuition that was a couple weeks ago now, because I see and I'm only able to really confirm it now because I'm like, well, I don't know, I was like, Carolyn is super dope. She's really nice. She's introduced me to Nichiren Buddhism. Then I had to see it take effect as well. And I'm like, it was her. You're a part of, of that. And I was like, wow. And then I think as well, when it comes to, oh my goodness, I'm just jumping right into everything, but when it comes to mystic law and universal principle, that's been something I've been so fond of since I was like a kid. Like I was always fascinated with the universe. So I think like maybe I was online and typed in like universe, and stumbled across at a young age universal law. And we definitely got to talk Nam-myoho-renge-kyo, because Nam-myoho-renge-kyo is actually a wonderful chant that comes from. Here, I'm gonna let you take it away.
Oh my gosh! Okay, so I guess a little bit of a backstory about Buddhism and how it traveled from India through the Silk Road down through the Orient. So it's a Sanskrit term, which loosely translates into devotion to the mystic law of cause and effect using your voice. So Myoho is mystic law. Renge literally is the lotus flower, which blooms and seeds simultaneously. So the cause and effect happen together.
Oh, wow.
And then Kyo is the voice.
The voice.
So that's what it is. And so the phrase itself is a serious condensation of the entirety of the Lotus Sutra. So the Lotus Sutra was the last teaching of the historical Buddha, and that is the teaching that really opened up the understanding that enlightenment is possible for anyone. We all have a Buddha nature or our highest potential. Everybody has it.
Yeah.
Even people who are doing hideously bad things have inside them this Buddha nature, this potential for highest good.
Right.
So when we chant, it's like we are chanting the whole Lotus Sutra in this one phrase, and we are connecting with this universal law of cause and effect.
Yeah.
And for us, cause and effect is a universal truth, like gravity. Nobody questions gravity. You're living, being stuck on this planet, not floating away into space, is actual proof that gravity exists, right?
Right.
It's a truth. Cause and effect is the same truth. When you make a cause, the effect is created simultaneously. Now, whether you meet that effect immediately or later in life is dependent on other things. And so I guess a good example of that is, let's say a smoker, right? So if someone smokes cigarettes, there are effects that happen immediately.
Or vapes.
Or vapes. Okay. So immediately the effects that will happen, you will start to build up gunk in your lungs, right? That's an immediate effect.
Yeah.
You will meet that effect right now because that's happening. The long-term effects, though, could be cancer, could be any other things, and you don't meet that effect until later in your life. But the cause that started it was you smoking or vaping, right? Same thing. So when you make the cause, an effect is created right away. Now, whether you meet it right away depends on a lot of things, but that's the basic explanation. Yeah.
And likewise with this cause and effect situation, when we pay attention at our job, or when we research a topic every day for a year, that we become more astute at those things, that we are more likely to obtain. If somebody wants to be a musician, if you go home and you play your keyboard every day, by the end of the year, you're likely to be closer to being a nice on the keys, right?
Right.
Then if you want to be a producer, or if you want to be someone famous for playing the keyboard, you continue this process under the acknowledgement and kind of faith and that cause and effect, and you end up somewhere.
Right.
You're not questioning the fact that if I do this, the cause and effect is going to carry. That it's going to kind of carry you, and it almost strings in a bit of extra confidence. Also on the other side, as we began that, and doing inherently and quote unquote bad things can produce a bad or negative effect, or something that grows you in a way, something that could be a lesson, but certainly possibly creating more suffering.
Yeah. Every choice, every cause has an effect. Yeah.
So just to reiterate again, so the Nam-myoho-renge-kyo is the acknowledgement and chanting of a portion of the Lotus Sutra, which highlights cause and effect.
Yeah.
Okay. So just observing again the actuality of cause and effect. Not that it is, not that cause and effect is inherently good or bad, but that we put the energy out that we want to get back, and then we end up kind of living in that more blissful state if we choose to go blissfully, if we choose to go triflingly.
I love that. Then we
may have a trifling.
Exactly. The nice thing thing about it, though, is when we chant, it aligns us with that universal law. Right?
Okay.
So when we chant with an intention or with purpose. And it can be whatever. You chant with that purpose, and you start to put that intention out there, and then you align up with the cause and the universal law, right?
Yeah.
And so what we believe is that when you set goals for yourself and you chant Nam-myoho-renge-kyo, all of the forces in the universe begin to conspire to make those things happen for you.
That's beautiful. And
so you don't know when or how, which is a beautiful thing, because humans, our human mind can only do so much. Like, our full capacity of our minds is not unlocked, right? Mm-hmm. So we may see, like, I need to cross the Nile River, but I don't have a boat. I don't got nothing, right? So you're trying to figure this out with your logical mind, right? Just an example, right? And then you start chanting, and the universe, like, I need to get across the Nile River. You don't know what's going to happen that's going to get you across the Nile River. Right. But if you're sitting up here racking your brain, like, trying to figure out, am I going to build a raft with these straw, twig, reeds, or whatever it is, you're so focused on this that you're missing the fact that some boat is floating down the river now that's just come by to help you, right? Right. So you don't know. And the nice thing about faith is that if you align yourself and align yourself with the universal law, it will manifest for you. Right. So
absolutely, and that is not some sort of, like, it is somewhat of a miracle, but it's not magic. It's a obedience to what is, in a way. It's a living in the now, and a surrender in a way. And these are things that when we see ourselves out there fighting against ourselves. When we have done the opposite of what is health, when we have done the opposite of what is productivity, when we have done the opposite of what is for our highest good, we often end up in places that resemble that. And so it's not like, so when you're, I noticed for myself upon starting to practice, and again, I really feel like I was feeling into the universal laws previously, but I did not have a practice around acknowledging and tying into universal law. That's why it's such a welcome practice for me as well. I just feel like I noticed myself it making more sense to wake up at this certain time in order to get certain tasks done. Okay, well, I need to be ready for the bus at this time. I feel like I've also noticed, like, things just kind of sinking in. I don't know. I've always been kind of a serendipitous person, and I love how the universe does that for us. I love how all is working together in that way, and if we just get in flow with it, we get to experience that already going on flow of harmony. But it feels so blissful. Again, it feels so nice to be cared for, and having that faith there. Also, it all just ties in. So it's just like gratitude. Wow, I'm taken care of. Or wow, today turned out. And acknowledging and kind of getting on board with.
My foot's going to sleep, but then I felt something on my head. Like,
uh-oh.
Anyway, maybe
did you
it's
hit
just
your aura ceiling?
I don't know. I might have. We might have some guests in the room too. I'm sorry. The most important thing is that my foot was going to sleep, so I needed to shift a little bit. So,
okay.
Yeah, whatever's happening up here is whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, continue. Yeah, being taken care of and feeling like it's blissful and feeling like you're taken care of.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, let's see here. So the origins of Nichiren Buddhism. How did Nichiren Daishonin's teaching revolutionize the Buddhist practice?
Good question. So Nichiren Daishonin was a 13th century Buddhist monk reformer. So he, much like the historical Buddha, recognized in his surroundings that the people were suffering, right? And that what was happening with the current teachings at the time was not bringing any relief to the people. So he really did a deep dive into the Lotus Sutra, which was the last teaching, as we talked about, of the historical Buddha. So in his studies is when he really unlocked the fact that enlightenment, everybody had the potential for it. Revolutionary to the time was that it did not involve a priesthood necessarily. Like you could be a woman and receive or be enlightened. You could be rich,
Wonderful.
you could be poor.
Right.
It didn't matter what your station in life was, because at that time, patriarchal class distinctions, same as now, I guess, access was an issue. But Nichiren comes along and says, hey, this ain't it, friends. She has just as much of potential to be enlightened. He does. The rich man does. The poor man does. And that was a big thing.
He's like, we want to say namaste and mean it.
Yes. Yes. And so and he was the one that actually did the work of penning Nam-myoho-renge-kyo. So the mandala that we are not allowed to show on camera, that we chant to, has Nam-myoho-renge-kyo inscribed down the middle. But Nichiren basically inscribed this mandala in what they call Sumi ink, or his life, right? Okay. So his life was summed up in in this study and sharing this practice and making it accessible to all people. And that was his revolutionary thing, because they weren't teaching that at the time.
Right.
Yeah.
So, okay, and so just to kind of break that down a little bit, so, because I think and not to make any comparisons, but in Christianity, when these new covens come out, that people may be familiar with Old Testament, and then this new covenant where we have Jesus telling people all these things that to try to make it more simple for them to get to God, right? Mm-hmm. So I think in Nichiren Buddhism, how is it perceived? Because we have, we're so used to, we have the King James version of this. We have this, and they have all these apostles and stuff. They kind of, some people have a best version of this person brought it the best. This person said it the best. Mm. In Buddhism, since there are different as a denomination,
different.
Because that's what
different schools like in the writings of Nichiren.Shonen, they talk about Tiantai and that particular school, and then they talk about the flower school, for example, and different schools of thought, different Buddhist schools of teaching. So the Lotus Sutra was the last one, and it was the one that opened everything up to humanity at large. Now how...
Okay.
I don't know how... there's not 50 million different versions. There are various sutras that the Buddha taught, and then this writings of Nichiren-Daishonin were the writings that he wrote to his... I hate to say the word followers, but I guess that's the most easy way to understand it. But as he was sharing this Buddhism with people began to follow the practice. And so he was persecuted by the thought police of the time and various governments trying to convert them. And so the compilation of letters that he wrote to his people, it was the writings of Nichiren Daishonin, which I guess what most people would consider the closest to be, if you had to compare a book of Christianity to that, would be like the New Testament, right? So the New Testament happened, chronicled life after Jesus became the Christ, right? So Jesus, he lived his life, and then when he became 30, he becomes the Christ, right? And so these next 3.5 years, or what have you, during his time as the Christ, he's going through and people are following him, and he's calling his disciples and things like that. Right. And so, Peter, Paul, they're all writing these books based on his life, right? So kind of the same, if there was a comparison that way. Now, the difference though herein lies is that there is just one version of the writings of Nichiren Daishonin. That's it. There's no King James translation. There's no new world translation. There's no modern living translation. And so all of those other translations are just that. They're translations. The King James translation I found to be, when I was studying Christianity, to be the least accessible because it was translated in a language that many people don't speak. It was translated for a king who really did not care to have people learn it. It was translated for King James. That's the translation that was made for him. And prior to that, all of the scriptures were in languages that we don't speak. They were dead languages.
Yeah.
Nobody speaks Latin.
Yeah.
Nobody speaks that.
Yeah.
Nobody talks like that. Nobody writes like that. So, so that version was translated for King James for the purpose that King James had to serve.
Yeah.
So there's no comparison that way, because the writings of Nichiren Daishonin were his writings. So nobody had to translate that for various other people.
Aside from the translation, and thank you for covering that.
Yeah.
Because on this show, I like to have people across the table be able to understand, to be like, so we can make kind of more connections than disconnections.
Yeah.
So for instance, I have witnessed denominations. There's Jehovah's Witness, there's Episcopal, there's Pentecostal. Now in the Buddhist teaching, where does a Nichiren Buddhism fit regard to denomination? Are those like the different houses, or is there a different? I guess is there other, because there's Zen Buddhism.
There are hundreds of different kinds of Buddhism.
So there's hundreds of different kinds of Buddhism.
Literally.
Wow.
So think about the span of time that Siddhartha sat under the Bodhi tree when he was going through his period of enlightenment, and this was hundreds of years of time that passed. So he's sitting here going through his enlightenment phase, and people are coming to him, right, to be taught. Yeah. And then they would come, and then they would go take the teachings that they got at that point, and they would take that away to their land. And then the next people that come during the next period of time get a set of teachings, and they take that away to their land, and so on, and so on, and so on. So there's lots of different sects of Buddhism, if you will.
Sure.
This one is the one that we believe is the one that accesses all people, to be enlightened in the form that you are today in your present state of existence, right? Some sects of Buddhism teach that you have to live an ascetic life. You have to give up all desires in order to be enlightened. You have to give up your humanity and become a different version of yourself in order to be enlightened. Some say that you have to, spend so many hours of silence or meditation or in Zen to get to that higher space. And this Buddhism says that you can become enlightened. In fact, you have the potential for enlightenment in yourself exactly as you are in this moment. Right. You don't have to die to be enlightened. You don't have to get to a certain level and then die and come back again and again and again to be enlightened. Because we have Buddha nature in ourselves, just like the other types of existence, you can access that anytime. Yeah. And chanting Nam-myoho-renge-kyo helps get you there faster. So,
that's so cool.
Yeah.
That's so cute. That's so cool. And I feel like during this time, I feel like a trending and needed rise in awareness and consciousness right now. Because Mother Earth needs some things taken care of, and we are on her. So, some of those things are needing to be faced. Some of these things that turn us away from war and pollution, some of these things need to be addressed, and it's such a wonderful time to have that as an asset to really kind of wake up, but also see like, how am I fitting into the flow of cause and effect? What is my footprint out there in the world, and that it means something, and that we're kind of a part of the team, the universal team, is what it feels like.
I love that part of the universal team. Kind of puts me in mind of all y'all comic book people out there, don't get mad at me. I don't know what house you with. If you with the Marvel house or you with the DC house, don't get mad at me. But the Marvel universe.
Right. The multiverse. Yes.
So I feel like if when you said that, it just made me think about all the different people and beings and where they are, and just coming together to make things better.
And could you, it would be so beautiful to just, however many years it's going to be from now, all these people who have maintained in their practice being those awakened beings and having awakened lineages of people, and that we are, that the world, not even that there's a separation between these lineages of people, but that our humanity became a lineage of awoken beings. How much good could we do with all of us in that status? It's cool to have a couple people reaching for awakening and waking up. And then they have these good ideas. We have these great ideas and epiphanies. So, and I think that's happening right now. I think we're getting to see that right now. But once that actually starts seeping into, I hope, the way the system runs, and seeping into the way that we view nature and our fellow neighbors and whoever we see, whoever we meet, for whatever reason, that we start seeing them from that standpoint, I could only imagine how much more, beautiful and peaceful and just,
So one of the things that we talk about that you've probably heard us say in the practice is the phrase Kosen Rufu.
Yeah. Tell us about Kosen Rufu.
Loosely is translated, in the most loose translation is world peace, right? Okay. But specifically, it is world peace that comes about when human revolution happens on a grand scale. Yes. So what is human revolution? Yes. Human revolution is when each individual challenges themselves to do the changes to become the best version of themselves. Right. So when we do that, when we take the vow, which if you are exposed to Nam-myoho-renge-kyo at any point in your lifetime, it means that at some point in another life you were exposed to it or were fortunate enough to come across it. Yeah. So if you're getting it in this lifetime, kudos, because you actually get to do something with it now, right?
That's so cool.
The human revolution is taking the things that you have right now and the obstacles that you face and challenging yourself to overcome them and become the best person that you can be and become happy. Right. And then that's your practice, right? That's Nam-myoho-renge-kyo, to meet these obstacles, overcome them, become the best person you can be, become the happiest person you can be, and then help somebody else do the same thing. Yes. It's the one thing about the practice that I love is that the idea is to be happy and to help other people be happy. And whatever that looks like. For some people, happiness is being able to have their kids around them and be able to, have a life where they can be, maybe at home with their kids. For other people, happiness is where they can travel the world and they can, do all these things. And for other people, they might be, challenging themselves to be able to run a business, all of these different things. But the idea is to be the best version of yourself and to overcome your obstacles and to help people be happy.
And then
That's that.
And that's wonderful. And that's a purpose like everyone can take up on in a way, that because I feel like sometimes when I ask, I don't want to say especially people from my generation, but when you ask people, many different people, and I often do like to speak to my generation because I'm like, what you doing? You ain't doing it? Okay, hold on, I got something for you. What's your purpose? And a purpose that is not just affecting you, but what is your purpose like that's going to change the world? And I think aiming for something that seems like that in the past, that has seemed like, how am I going to change the world? What can I do I can't do nothing, blah, blah, blah. Like sometimes you hear those voices, sometimes you hear those people say that, sometimes you have said that, and then you come to discover, a Nam-myoho-renge-kyo, or, some faith in yourself, in the laws of the universe, that wakes you up to, oh no, I can affect it. I can make an effect with my life force while I am here. There's some way to do it. There's some way for me to picture myself in the world, changing someone's day for the better, doing something that uplifts the community, doing something that helps nature, doing something that helps myself. So
here's the cool thing about this practice is that when you're sitting and you're chanting, all you have to do is make the determination. Just be determined. Be determined that I'm going to be that person that makes a difference. I'm going to be the person to introduce someone else to how they become happy.
Yes.
I'm going to help somebody today. And then if you make that determination, especially when you're chanting, you will be amazed. You can make the determination and just don't even think about it anymore. And people are going to cross your path that you're going to help. You're going to encounter people. You're going to, it's going to be like, I didn't expect that, It might be the person that you meet at the grocery store. It might be the person that you are, coming across when you're waiting for an Uber. It might be your Uber driver, It might be a person that you're sitting with at the coffee shop.
Yeah.
You just never know. You just make the determination and then watch how it opens up. And you just have to make the determination to be courageous and do it.
Yeah. To share and speak it. With people, I called one of my best friends, Danilo Energy, when I had meditated the first few times with Nam-myoho-renge-kyo and or chanted rather, and I was
say meditation. It's fine. It's a verbal meditation. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which as a musician, we'll have to talk about that and then after this one. Which as a musician, I love chanting and the rhythmic and the whole vibe of that. I'm like, that works for me because there is something musical about it. Mm-hmm. There is something that just clicks in about that timing and pacing of it for me. Mm-hmm. And I think any musician would feel that. I called Danilo and I'm like, hey, I got to meditate with some Nichiren Buddhists the other day, and it was one of the coolest experiences I've ever had. I was like, do you know? He's like, oh, you mean Nam-myoho-renge-kyo? And I was like, shut up! I'm like, how did you know? And he's like, that was one of my first. He was like, that's one of the first things that I ever experienced on my adult spiritual journey. And I was like, what? Well, yeah. He's like, moving out to California. That was one of the first things. And he was like, I went. And I was meditating in the actual Buddhist temple there in California. Mm. So, because they actually do have some pretty big temples there.
And at one point we had temples.
Yeah.
And at one point there was a priesthood and a lay class. Mm-hmm. But there's a whole history that I don't want to go into right now because it's a lot. Okay. But essentially what happened was when you'll hear us talk about Daisaku Ikeda, who was the third president of the lay organization that we have now. There was some conflicts where the priesthood was not supporting the fact that anyone could access this practice. So essentially they were charging for things like conducting memorial services for members who had deceased loved ones, and asking for money to be able to access prayers for the members and different things like that. It was kind of insane, actually, when I think about it. And
wow.
it was a pretty bad situation. And so at a certain point, it just came to a loggerhead. Daisaku Ikeda was remonstrating with these priests, like, hey, this ain't it. And they were like, oh, okay, so. And so then eventually there was a separation. The clergy, the priesthood essentially kicked us out, and we became a lay organization at that point. And that's what we consider to be our spiritual independence. So that's why the organization we have now is a full lay class. There are no temples. Okay. There are community centers. Yeah. And we do a lot of our practice in individual homes, small group discussion groups, and then the centers for larger group discussions and things like that. Sure. But so there is no.
Just to get together sometime, and I think that. But you know what? I think that's so and I'm not gonna say BA, but I feel like that is so.
You can
bad.
cuss.
I feel like it's
Buddhist
so badass.
Buddhist cuss.
Oh, okay, cool.
Some, not all. It's not a rite of passage.
Yeah.
You be a Buddhist. You don't have to cuss.
Yeah, no.
There's no prohibition.
Okay, I just want to be respectful. But I think it's so badass about Nichiren Buddhism because the independence and that spiritual liberation to a lot of us what we're experiencing now, and I think in my generation is especially what I would say is some of us are feeling like we're becoming more spiritual. It's not that we are completely leaving behind what we have known, but we feel like we're needing to have our own personal relationship with our higher power. Mm-hmm. So you're seeing they constantly mention, less people are going to church. Yes, less of the young people are going to church, or the temple, or the mosque, or the
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's because there were so many stipulations at times. Mm-hmm. That's because there were so many, you got to do like this, don't come dressed like that. Come dressed like, but it's like, I'm coming here to get in contact with higher power, with my faith and stuff. So, but all these stipulations, and that's interesting that it seems like that has taken place even there. And then all of a sudden, it's a lay. Okay, but now is the time for people to, I feel like, cultivate your own prayer at home, cultivate your own meditation at home. Not that it doesn't have any fundamental principle or a specific way you practice, but you can do it at home. You can go outside. You can go to your friend's house. Everything else is available everywhere else. All the ills and all the bad things are available down the street, over here, over there. Why isn't prayer and meditation available like that? So I love that. It is, obviously, but I love that Nichiren Buddhism actually kind of activates that and goes beyond, goes inside and goes beyond. And it's like, no, we're really connecting with the universe. Mm-hmm. Universal, the mystic law. It don't have a beginning or end. Right. We're going to do it, wherever. Right. Because it is wherever.
Right. When I first started practicing, I received my Gohonzon 9 years ago. But before that, when I first started chanting, I would go to work. The person that introduced me to the practice, he still lives in Detroit. But I would go to work. I was working for a retail establishment at that time. And I would sit in my car before I would go in the morning, and I would chant in my car, and the seagulls would always come to the seagulls in the parking lot or whatever, you know what I mean? So, but every time I would chant, the seagulls would come around. But I would chant in my car in the morning before I would go into work.
Yeah.
So, having your own mandala, of course, gives you a focus. It's like a mirror, like a focus to be able to focus your energy. But you can chant anywhere.
Yeah.
Anytime. And you can access that anywhere, anytime. And I love that.
I love that as well. I have had a couple of times where I'm like, I'm not home, but I want to do my evening chant. So I just do it. And it's just good practice. I mean, there's so many different things out there that are grabbing our attention. There's so many different things out there that grab our attention on the phone. I mean, that evening scroll compared to spending 10, 15, 20 minutes on meditation and prayer, like, how many nights are people just scrolling through and putting the phone down and going to sleep? Mm-hmm. Whereas you impart your spiritual practice and then you go to sleep. You're waking up stronger. You're waking up more ready to go. Yeah. You're waking up with the focus, and you put your heart and your heart and mind and soul onto something that like matters, rather than all these distractions that we have.
Yeah, it's a thing. I will tell you that doom scrolling is I battle doom scrolling every day. Yeah. It's a battle. So I have to renew my determination every day. Yeah. Every day. Okay, I'm not going to pick up my phone and scroll before I chant. I'm not going to pick up my phone and scroll before I chant.
Right.
I'm not going to spend an hour today on my phone scrolling. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's a battle. So I don't want anybody listening to this podcast to feel like Buddhism is easy. It is not. And because it is self-actuated, you don't have someone else to blame for your successes or your defeats, right?
Yeah.
It is very much accountability is on you. If you don't practice, it's on you.
Yeah.
If you do practice, it's on you.
Right.
It's not like you're waiting for somebody to come and intervene or be the intermediary or anything like that. You have everything you need, and if you choose to access it, you do. If you don't, then you don't.
Right.
And that responsibility, that accountability, that is not easy.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
Yeah.
You can't scapegoat and be like, oh, pastor didn't pray for me today, or oh, I didn't make it to the temple, so the priest didn't put in the extra effort for me, or whatever. You know what I mean? Or nothing. It's all you.
Right.
It's all you.
And it's also, I think, also too with the with practice, with this practice, cause and effect. When you start unraveling a situation and you go through, okay, what was it called? What was effect? Well, effect, cause, okay, effect, cause, oh, it was me. You get back to the, you get right down to the nitty-gritty. The needle of the thread, and the weavings, and a lot of times you realize it's you. But I feel like the glorious thing about that is you have this choice. You have all the choice. So if you want to figure out how you can get that, and I don't want to relate to a material item. If you want to figure out your dreams, like whatever your dream is, that weaving back and finding that you were the cause of each like so many situations in your life, or what was. I mean, maybe somebody walked out the house and something bad happened. Something bad didn't happen to you because you walked out the house, but certainly you can weave it back to the fact that the door was open, and so we walk outside the house. We go left or right. Do we go somewhere where we know it may be dangerous? Do we go somewhere where we know it may be an outcome, an 8-hour paycheck, a healthy practice of yoga, or going to the gym, or what food we decide to eat? There's so many. So now you can start from witnessing cause and effect and noticing it, and doing your practice, you start understanding how it works better. And then again, you, like you said, you start being in this kind of, you're in flow. You may experience less suffering, which may feel like more abundance, which may feel like more things are taken care of, which may feel like, more blissful. Yeah.
I think that's kind of, it's important. I also want to, and this is something that I really have a hard time explaining, because bad things happen to people all the time. It is a thing. But good and bad, right and wrong, good and evil, all the things, they exist simultaneously in us at all times.
Yeah.
Our highest potential and our lowest potential it exists in us at all times.
Okay.
It's all the good and bad that in our life is a part of our life, intrinsically.
Right.
Everybody. And so I don't want to, I would hate for someone to leave this podcast and to go out and think, I did something bad, so I have cancer now because I did something bad in my past life. Right?
Right.
That is not accurate. There are good forces and bad forces, and good things and bad things that just naturally happen in the flow of the universe.
Right.
There are things. And so what this practice allows you to do, though, is to say, I will not be defeated by this cancer, for example. Right. I will challenge this cancer. I will overcome this, or I will, fight for my life until,
Period.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's also an empowerment tool to help you deal with the things that are inherently part of life.
Absolutely.
So that part. So yeah, I don't want people to go thinking, oh, if I it's not a tit for tat. I hate to go back to Christianity, but it's just such an easy way, like certain penances, right? Like and I forget if it's Catholicism or what have you, where you go and you forgive me, Father, for I have sinned, and you confess your sins to the priest, and the priest says, okay, my child, you got to go and do 10 Hail Marys, and you got to do or the nuns making you go up and down and do the prayers on the pencils or whatever until you break your knees 15 times, whatever it is. You know what I mean? It's not that, right? It's not tit for tat like that, right? Yeah. It is. It had already
happened. Because it is the activity of what's going on,
right?
And it goes back to accountability.
Yeah.
But it doesn't ever doesn't need to dip into self guilt or dogma. I feel is what we're
right.
So that's also, I think, as people get themselves deeper into study of Buddhism, this feeling bad or feeling too good, I know is one thing that is like, don't drive yourself into these irrational, ridiculous states of, oh, everything is good, I must be good because everything is good, or everything is bad, I must be bad because everything is bad. Some things are happening, some things that was bad have completely flipped the script, and you were like, if that bad thing didn't happen, I wouldn't have known how to be this strong. I wouldn't have, so that's what I've realized through life. I feel like a lot of times when a bad situation had come up, by the time I'm getting through it, I'm realizing if certain bad didn't happen, I wouldn't be the badass that I am right now.
Facts.
Yes. So what was bad? Is that a thing where we?
It is. I don't know. I guess bad is relative. In some case, there are certain things that are just, we all would agree, killing people, not a good look.
No.
You know what I mean?
What's the karma
things
like
that? But there are,
too high.
You can take the challenges in your life and you can use them to make good.
Yeah.
And we call that turning poison into medicine.
Oh, I love that.
So if you, I don't know, let's just say you lost your job and you lost your house and you lost your car and your dog died. Insert country song here. Right. Once all that happens, you can be defeated. You can be rock bottom. And believe me, we all either have had it or will have it. Rock bottom happens, I believe, for every person at some point in their life. What you do at that point is where it becomes, it can either be poison and take you completely out of the game, or it can become medicine and it can make you stronger and you overcome it and you are that much stronger for the next thing that's coming.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's really, basically we call that poison into medicine. And it's great.
Love that.
Anything. Yeah. I feel like we're going way off the script here. You had all these nice things all together there and everything, and I'm sitting there we done talked about all kinds of stuff.
We're actually just going so well with all of it that I didn't even need the damn thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. I love that. You're so easy to talk to, too. I'm not nervous anymore.
Likewise.
I'm not nervous anymore.
Okay, good.
Yeah. My foot's not sleeping anymore either. I finally found a position that my foot don't go to sleep.
Okay, good. I'm glad everything's flowing. And let's go here into the questions that I have prepared for you.
Oh, okay.
And thank you so much for
while you standing up, can you hand me my glass over there?
Yes.
Perfect, because I was like, yes, that's the one. I was like, I don't want to get up while we're doing this, but since you got up to get questions, I'm gonna. Yes.
A lot of times I tell my listeners that we're chilling. We're like actually hanging out, and we're spending some time on the podcast, just learning together and just hanging out. So,
all the coolest bags and everything. The book.
And the book's under the laptop here. Okay. Here we go.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I'm so professional. I have my notepad.
I'm impressed. So I'm impressed. Yes. I don't know if I'm ready for these questions, but
so
I'm impressed.
Happy to hear that.
We're gonna see. Yeah.
Okay. So, welcome back.
Thanks.
I'm back on the couch. This is the What I Need podcast. We have Carolyn. We have Carolyn Ferrari here, a member of the Nichiren Buddhist community. Well, let's get some questions going here. Obviously, here on the show, we cover society, spirituality, and ways of being. So I'm going to ask you some questions that are specific to those topics. Okay, so here we go. Society. Where does Nichiren Buddhism stand to affect change in society?
Great question. I think we kind of talked about it a little bit earlier, in that we believe that we can change whole societies by first changing ourselves and then helping people one person at a time. And then that effectively changes whole societies. A great example of this, when Nichiren Buddhism was in its developing stages, in its blossoming stages in Japan right after World War II, the growth in the organization was proportionately growing at the rate that Japan was recovering from World War II.
Wow.
So, and that was because these people who had suffered so much, just one person at a time teaches another person.
Yeah.
And then as they become stronger, better, happier people, better employees, better business owners, just helping each other, helping better community-minded folk, it really literally helped recover a whole society.
Yeah.
So that's just one example. So as far as it goes, we transform society one person at a time, really.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay. And I know we answered this one earlier. Who founded Nichiren Buddhism?
Nichiren Daishonin was a 13th century Buddhist monk reformer. So he discovered the Lotus Sutra, which was the last teaching of Siddhartha, and then through his studies and desire to help in the people suffering in his community, he unlocked the knowledge that enlightenment was possible for everyone, man, woman, rich, poor. And then through his transcribing of this practice he kind of condensed it into Nam-myoho-renge-kyo and created the mandala that we chant to. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's move into spirituality. How/why are there different practices of Buddhism? What makes Nichiren Buddhism different? And I know you might have answered that just now, but these also may be cut into clips. So go ahead.
So, how/why are there so many different practices of Nichiren Buddhism, or practices of Buddhism in general?
Yeah, in your opinion, and just, you know.
So, I think we
We're
also
not
kind
mad
of
about
touched
it
on,
or anything.
no, we kind of touched on this a little bit earlier too. I do believe that when Siddhartha left the walls of his privileged posh life and entered into the real world of humanity, and saw the suffering, and then when he went to go under the Bodhi tree to begin his enlightenment process, throughout the journey of that, the people that encountered him encountered whatever teachings he had at whatever level of enlightenment he was at that time.
At the time, right.
So then they would take that amount of knowledge and take it away to their folks. And then the next group of people would come, and whatever level he was at that time, they would take it away to their folks. So each one of those eras that happened resulted in a different type of Buddhism.
Wow.
So that's what happened, really. Buddhism spread all around the world through the Silk Road and things like that. So then Nichiren comes along in the 13th century, and he is the one that discovers the Lotus Sutra, which was the last teaching, and the teaching that revealed that anybody could attain enlightenment in your present form as you are chanting Nam-myoho-renge-kyo.
Wow.
That's super Cliff's Notes. But
wow.
Yeah.
Okay, no, that's fine. Okay. Within, again, the spiritual questions, where does Nichiren Buddhism uplift our spirit and spiritual practice principally?
That's such a good question, because I'll give you a little bit of backstory, and then I'll kind of talk specific about this. When I left Christianity, I went on a spiritual journey. I was I was mad. I was not in a good space. I had been mistreated by so many people. So then the first thing I actually encountered on that journey was the law of attraction. So the vision boards and the power of the mind to manifest all the things, right? And so that was quite a bit of a journey, and I did a lot. I accomplished a lot during that time. And then what I found out when I discovered Nichiren Buddhism was that a lot of the things that I was doing were Buddhist principles that I just didn't know were Buddhist principles, right? So I think for me, Nichiren Buddhism in the realm of spirituality is the most direct connect to us and our power within the spirit realm, because we can make anything happen. You know, you chant, you set your intentions, and you watch the universe unlock. And that's that. Now, do I still smudge my house when people been in my house acting crazy? Hell yeah, because there's some energies that I don't want in my house, but I also chant. I don't just smudge. I'm smudging, and then I'm Nam-myoho-renge-kyo. Sometimes I'm Nam-myoho-renge-kyo while I'm walking the ass out my house, and then I'm going to go smudge. So, you know. I
love that.
I like the fact that it is my principal practice. But there are things that are energetic that connect me to the ancestors that I don't have to give up. That this practice does not say I cannot burn some sage when I need to. There's nothing that says I can't do what I need to do. I can't have my crystals sitting around, because energy is energy.
There are things going on at fractal levels. It just is what it is. Okay. Okay, so, and I love that too. I would love to just second that as well, that I felt Nichiren Buddhism brings a great principle practice to spirituality, and it's not to dictate how anybody should, choose a principle practice or shift or transform or whatever, explore and do what feels like what you need. But I do think in the grandiose of the infinite, there is definitely in us as human beings, we're capable of a lot, but I do think there's a place for us to kind of like know our role and flow into that role with everything that's going on, like you said, and watch the universe unlock, and there is sometimes a formation, there is sometimes, principle practice that needs to be done. There is sometimes, it's not to nitpick everything else, but it is to also align. Yes. All right. So
I was like, what's on the back? You got stuff on the back side?
I just have some ways of being. This is our ways of being slide.
Okay.
And then it's asking, who do we have here? So we're starting over from the beginning. We're starting the end with the beginning.
Who do we have here?
Yeah.
Carolyn Ferrari.
Okay.
In artist worlds, I'm also known as Diamond Dancer. I have been a spoken word artist now for almost 25 years. Jewelry designer for almost as long. I'm an actor. I work in the theater community a little bit, and I work for a theater company now doing immersive entertainment. So that's my world.
What? I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
All we talk about is Buddhism.
Yeah. Yes, I started acting in 2016, and then so I do a lot with this immersive entertainment company, and
Wonderful.
Right now I'm in leadership, so I don't get to do as much acting as I used to, but I direct 23 troops across the country and help them run their shows. So that's my job.
Wow, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay. Any favorite hobbies or anything you want to share with us?
Wow. I don't even think about hobbies anymore, because things are, jewelry design and spoken word are such a big part of my life when I'm not.
Yeah.
And so, but spoken word and house music.
You like house music?
Listen, I love house music. Tell you a true story.
We gotta listen to some house. I love house.
House music saved my life in 1997.
Come on.
I moved to Detroit with my sister. Actually, she moved with me, but that's another story. Anyway, so we moved to Detroit, and I she's one of the beautiful people, she's just beautiful people.
Yes.
And so her and her beautiful friends would take me out to these clubs all the time, and I was like, I think I'm beautiful now, but believe me, back then I went through my phase where I really did not feel that way, and society did not treat me that way in this body with this skin tone, all the things, right? So I spent many nights sitting in the club holding purses while the beautiful people were out there dancing and all the things. So one night she was like, we're going out. I'm like, no, we ain't. We are not going anywhere. I'm not going through this again. You know what I mean? I was so depressed. And so she said, we're going out. I was defiant. When I tell you I was defiant, I had on not the cute little cutoffs like they do like now. I had some homemade damn cutoff shorts. They were not cute. They were just cutoff denim shorts. And I had on this blue crochet sweater that my sister hated. She hated it. I loved it. Made me comfortable. Had on a white tank top underneath that. And then I just I had hair back then. So it was like, my hair was not the kind of cute afro hair, but it was not the kind of straight, take a curl hair either. So I call it now a afro. So I had my little afro and I just kind of combed it back. And this one I wore going to the club, right? Because I did not care anymore. I was like, I'm going to be sitting here anyway holding purses. So we go to this little place called 246, a little hole-in-the-wall club on Madison Avenue in Detroit. Doesn't exist anymore, but that was the place. And so we walk in, and you know how, have you been to Detroit? Do you know anything about Detroit? So, the club set and the brothers with the gator shoes and the suits and the matching and the women with the hair and the nails. This is back in the 90s, right? So we go into this house music club, and there is nothing like that happening.
Yeah, right.
There's nothing. And all I'm hearing is this music, right? And so we go in, and there's no crazy boots and, like, bottles and all this other stuff. And we went to the dance floor, and we were able to dance together. And I was like, we don't have to wait for no guys to ask us to dance. And she was like, no. Right. And I don't have to sit in the corner and hold the purses. And she was like, no. And we...
The freedom of house music and just the atmosphere is different. Yeah. It has its own flavor. It has its own style. Everybody is it is like very much like come just how you are. In fact, do something different. I want to see something crazy. Yeah. And if the crazier it is, the more you are, just bring it onto the dance floor and everybody experience. That's so good. I'm so glad that's your experience with house music because that
saved my life in 1997.
Love that.
And I've been recording spoken word over house music for 20.
Are you kidding me?
Almost 20 years.
I produce house music.
I've got almost 20 years of music in the marketplace right now.
Well, I produce house music as well, so we'll have to get back in there and make some ambient tracks or something with spoken word on it. Echoey water droplets and stuff.
We'll do all the things. Yes.
Okay. How did Nichiren Buddhism come into your life? How did it help transform life for the better for you?
Wow. The first time I heard Nam-myoho-renge-kyo, I did not know what it was. I was living in Florida, and I was driving through some neighborhood, and I heard this sound, and I just forgot about it. And so this is like 2010, 2011.
Okay.
And so then at another time, I was in a restaurant down there, and somebody had left a Nam-myoho-renge-kyo card in the bathroom.
It was called like calling to you, yeah.
So, long story short, I went through some changes. Ended up living overseas for a while. Ended up coming back to the United States. Mm-hmm. And when I moved into this house in Detroit, the gentleman that introduced me to the practice, that's why I ended up moving into that house because it was a hellhole. But the person that I needed to meet was in that house. Okay. So he was chanting. And so it was so weird. The guy that owned the house, he was like, oh yeah, you're an artist. The guy that lives upstairs, he's an artist too. And but he's a Buddhist. I'm like, okay. That's exactly what I said. So that's how I ended up with the practice. And I will tell you that my first experience with the practice, before I even received my mandala, I was having trouble with this person, my boss at work. Mm-hmm. And my friend said, you're going to think this is crazy, but you should chant for her. I'm like, I ain't chant for this crazy bitch. She doing me dirty. Chant for her. You know what I mean? It was so crazy, right? I did did it though.
Yeah.
I did it. I
Yeah.
chanted for this woman, and I tell you, within like 48 hours, we were able to have at least decent conversations with each other.
Yeah.
And that's how I knew the practice worked.
Right.
Right. And so since then, I mean, I've manifested all kinds of shit. Great apartments.
Okay.
You know, my life has been sustained for me financially, even when I did not know where shit was coming from. Like, I'm like, okay, I'm spending money. Things are happening, but money keeps coming.
Yeah.
You know, I've not lost an apartment. I've not had, it's all just been, so for me, for my life, it has been, it is the, whatever happens, I'm covered.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's again, it's putting yourself, it's putting yourself there. And it's also saying, so Nam-myoho-renge-kyo, that last word being the voice.
Yeah.
You're speaking it into existence.
Yeah.
You know, there are things that universally reflect too, because some people say life and death and the power of the tongue. What are you speaking about? What are you affirming?
Yeah.
Do your affirmations. What are you affirming?
Yeah.
Nam-myoho-renge-kyo.
Yeah.
I'm getting in the flow of the universe. The universe got a lot to give. In fact, the universe then gave everything to everything.
The universe is boundless. You are the only one that limits the universe.
Right.
The universe has
and
no
then
limit.
don't do that
Don't do that.
as well. Like,
Don't do that.
But sometimes people they're limiting. I think when people, a lot of talk has gone on about the simulation and breaking out of, you know, the kind of the systematic or the matrix or these different things. And I think the matrix is nothing but the limitation of the universe, and living in that and like confiding in that and being kind of having one's faith based in the limitation. Oh, well, the world, you know, that's just how the world works. That's just this and that. Like, that's all it can be. I can't change it. Those self-limiting beliefs start belittling the expansive and infinite of the universe. Yeah. That's when people, I feel like we find ourselves boxed in. And sometimes, just because you start to do the chanting, or just because, you still have to keep widening your scope. Yeah. And be like, wow, I didn't know it could be brought to me like this. Yeah. I didn't know I could give out such a gift to someone. Yeah. And it's unlimited, the things that we're...
Let me give you a really great example of this. And tell you how profoundly it impacted me, because it blew my mind. When you pray for somebody else, how do you pray for them? You pray for them to have the unlimited of whatever they want. Whatever they're asking you to pray about, you pray for the best outcome. You pray for whatever it is that's the best thing for that person that has asked you to pray on their behalf. Yeah. Because you're not trying to figure it out for them, right? You're not trying to figure out how their child is going to get out the hospital. You're not trying to figure out how they're going to get their car fixed. You're not trying to figure out how they're going to get the whatever it is that they asked you to pray about. You're not trying to figure it out. Right. You're just going to pray with the highest potential energy for their best outcome. Yeah. However, when you sit down and you pray for yourself, but you pray through all of these filters, through all of these gauntlets. Like, you pray for, oh my God, my tire, I got to get my tire fixed, but, you know, I also got to pay the light bill. I also got to figure out how I'm going to work. I might have to work 10 extra hours this week. Oh, and the kids, they got to go here. And you know what I mean? Your mind is so fixed on the limitations of your circumstances that you cannot unlock and pray for the highest part of what you want for yourself. That's the work, right? So that is why when you chant or pray for yourself, you have to put it there and leave it. You make the determination. You have to go in with what the outcome is that you want it to be. Okay. And then you have to literally just leave it there. Yeah. And just leave it. Okay. Like you would for somebody else. Yeah. Because for somebody else, when you're praying for them, you just have the highest intention and you don't have all the muck. Right. Okay. So when we chant, a lot of times what we'll do is we'll write down our goals and write down the things that we want. Big shit. Like, I'm talking like big shit, right? And you just write it out and you just put it there. And sometimes people write their goals out and they go back 2 years later and they look at those note cards or they look in that notebook and all this shit has happened.
Right. So
if you can find a way to pray for yourself with the same intensity and highest potential for good that you pray for somebody else.
Yeah. That's when we start to...
It's an unlock because there's no limit. Your mind lets go of the limits when you're praying for somebody else.
Right. I definitely feel that and believe that too. And I think also one thing that praying for others does is help, I don't know, helps like cleanse out energy somehow. Like, especially like you mentioned, the lady that you had an issue with at work, but you had chanted for her, prayed for her, and then the problem dissolved. Mm-hmm. I see a lot of that happening in my own life too. I had a situation going with my mother where, we had a disagreement about how I'm going about this or that, or finding a new job, or and it really, the content of the argument, it was really brought about by almost nothing. But after I put the prayer work into it, I felt like it just dissolved. We haven't been having those kind of disagreements. We've been kind of hearing each other out more. We've been, okay, well, she said this, I'm fond of it, okay, I'm not gonna say that. Well, okay, Mom. There's no rebuttal, there's no argument. There's more love, there's more room for compassion, there's more room for, okay, I actually do understand what you're saying now, okay, I get you.
I love that.
So yeah,
I love that.
So okay, so yeah, do your prayer work, people.
Yes, do your prayer work, people. Yes.
Feel okay. How? Okay, we're pretty good on time. How do you feel the practice will affect one's life, walk, talk, seeing of the world?
For me, the practice helped my confidence. It is now my safe space. It's very much my safe space. And because there's no limits, there's just no limits to the world. But I always had a world view. I've always been a person that's traveled and wanted to see the world. It just helps me now to see that this movement is universal, right? We practice in almost 200 lands. Nam-myoho-renge-kyo is all around the world now. And it started with one person, Daisaku Ikeda. We, as you continue to practice more, you'll hear the last president that was alive, Daisaku Ikeda, he learned from Toda, who learned from Makaguchi. So Makaguchi and Makaguchi died in prison. Toda went to prison with Makaguchi, but when he came out, he was really the only one practicing, and he found Daisaku Ikeda. So Daisaku Ikeda, and they became his mentee. Toda was the mentor, Daisaku was the mentee, and so Daisaku's commitment to his mentor resulted in him literally single-handedly doing all the things to spread this practice around the world.
Wow.
One person.
Wow.
So through that example, I now have a living, well, he's no longer living, he just passed a year and a half ago, example of how one person can literally change the world.
Wow.
Where's the limits?
Wow.
There's no limits.
Oh, no.
The thing is that you have to convince yourself of that inside.
Yeah.
And you have to keep convincing yourself because it's easier to believe that we can't. So
that that I can change my destiny. So that's one thing that I wanted to, one of the prayers in the Soka Gakkai International, Gakkai International
I love that
book.
You just carry the book around with you. That's fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is, and I don't know if I'm able to have it on camera, but so forgive me if that's.
It's the silent prayers for the deceased.
So
yes. It
is.
I pray that the great vow for worldwide coast and roof will be fulfilled, and that Soka Gakkai will be successful in this, developing this for countless generations to come.
Yes.
I pray to accomplish my own human revolution and change my destiny. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
To change my destiny. What does the word destiny mean to you?
Oh, destiny to me. Nobody's actually asked me to articulate this. So
and it can be just to you. So that so don't have to.
But now I have to really think about this for a second, because destiny as it is well, backing up to before we came here, we agreed to come here with a certain set of problems and circumstances to prove the validity of this practice in this realm, in this lifetime. So I would think that that would be the destiny, whatever that set of problems is that we came here and we said we were going to work with in this life. So to change that outcome, that would be, to me, what changing my destiny is.
Okay.
Whatever the outcome is of the saha or world that we need, the badness of the world that we live in, changing that.
Okay, nice.
Changing that.
Nice.
That would be the destiny that we have to kind of change. And
Wonderful.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's all the questions I do have there.
Some doggone good questions, sir.
Wonderful. And yeah, before we get ready to head out of here on today's episode of the What I Need podcast, I'd like to say thank you so much and namaste to you, Carolyn, for sharing Nichiren Buddhism with us, some of the ins and outs of this wonderful practice that can just help, again, people to garner that courage to be able to affect change, affect their destiny, and, you know, let them know about worldwide Kosen Rufu out here, baby. You know.
So I am not the ultimate source. Can I share the website?
Yes,
If anybody wants to get in touch in your area, I don't know where everyone's listening at, but sgiusa.org.
Okay.
Go there, connect you with all the things you need to know about that. Yeah.
So should we say it one more time for our friends here?
Yeah.
So this is Carolyn, this is Caroline and Karlton, King Karlton, signing off. Nam-myoho-renge-kyo.
Renge-kyo.
Renge-kyo.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.